Hello and welcome to Rediscovering Foods. What do Vincent van Gogh, medieval peasants, and freeze-dried Andean tubers have in common? The answer is potato soup. In medieval Europe, people kept a pot simmering for weeks, a perpetual stew where flavors deepened and nothing went to waste. Centuries later, Van Gogh would write to his brother Theo about living on just bread and soup, humble meals that mirrored the lives he painted. To him, even a bowl of potato soup held dignity and meaning. Today, we're diving into the surprisingly rich history of a dish that's warm, simple, and deeply human: potato soup. Our story begins high in the Andes Mountains of South America, where indigenous peoples first domesticated wild potato plants around 8,000 years ago. That's right, while many of us associate potatoes with European cuisine, they're actually an ancient South American crop. The Inca civilization and their predecessors were agricultural geniuses. They cultivated potatoes at altitudes between 3,300 and 3,800 meters, heights where most crops would simply fail. They developed sophisticated farming techniques that have been passed down through generations. Did you know that there are over 4,000 varieties of native potatoes in the Andes? They come in amazing colors: purple, red, yellow, shapes and sizes we rarely see in our supermarkets today. The ancient Andeans even invented a freeze-drying technique called chino. They would leave potatoes out to freeze overnight in the mountain air, then stomp on them to remove moisture and finally dry them in the sun. This preserved potatoes for years and made them crucial for survival during harsh winters. The potato was so central to Andean life that the Incas actually used the time it takes to cook a potato as a measurement of time. Imagine saying, "I'll be back in 2 potato cookings." The potato remained unknown to Europeans until 1537, when Spanish explorers encountered it in Colombia. By the mid-1500s, it arrived in Europe as part of the Great Columbian Exchange, a sweeping transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the Old and New Worlds. Europeans were terrified of potatoes. They thought the potato was poisonous. It's part of the nightshade family, after all. Some religious leaders even condemned it simply because it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. In fact, the French Parliament banned potatoes in 1748, blaming them for diseases like leprosy. For years, people only grew them as animal feed or for their pretty flowers. But when famine and war hit, potatoes proved essential. They yielded more calories than grain, grew in poor soil, and stored well underground. Survival began to change minds. In Prussia, Frederick the Great also embraced potatoes, handing out free seeds. Today, people still leave potatoes at his grave in gratitude. But the potato story isn't all celebration. In Ireland, dependence on a single variety led to disaster. When blight hit in the 1840s, over 1 million died and millions more fled their homeland. The Great Famine is a warning, but also a reminder of the potato's power. Even after tragedy, it remained a pillar of Irish cuisine and culture. Now, let's talk about soup itself. The history of soup is almost as old as cooking, dating back to around 20,000 BC when humans invented waterproof containers. Early methods involved heating liquids by placing hot stones into animal hides or watertight baskets. In medieval Europe, from the 9th to 17th centuries, pottage was the staple food of the poor. The word comes from the Old French potage, meaning food cooked in a pot. It was typically a thick soup or stew made by boiling grains, legumes, vegetables, and occasionally meat or fish. One fascinating practice was the perpetual stew, or 100-year stew. Imagine a pot kept simmering over a fire for days, weeks, or even months. People would take portions out for meals and continuously add new ingredients. Nothing was wasted, and the flavor was constantly evolving. By the 17th century, a culinary shift was happening. The French began serving liquid broth on its own as a distinct course, separate from the solid ingredients. This transition from pottage to soup reflected broader changes in dining customs and social hierarchies. The word soup itself comes from the Old French soupe, or soup, which originally referred to a slice of bread on which broth was poured. By the early 18th century, soup had become a refined first course in formal meals, quite a journey from its humble origins. So when did potatoes and soup come together? The first cookbook to feature potato recipes was Ouverture de Cuisine by Lancelot de Casteau, published in 1604 in what is now Belgium. Early potato dishes were actually considered luxury items, prepared with expensive imported spices and wines. Isn't that ironic? The potato, which later became known as poor people's food, started its European culinary journey as an exotic delicacy. The direct ancestor of many modern potato soups is potage parmentier, yes, named after our potato champion. This classic French soup combines potatoes and leeks cooked in broth, often finished with butter or cream. It became so refined that even Queen Victoria reportedly enjoyed it. But the story doesn't end there. In the early 20th century, a French-born chef named Louis Diet was working at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in New York. Inspired by his childhood memories of his mother's potato and leek soup, which she would cool with milk on hot days, he created a chilled version called vichyssoise. Named after his hometown of Vichy, France, this elegant cold soup transformed a humble dish into haute cuisine. It's a perfect example of how food evolves across generations and borders. As the potato spread around the world, different cultures created their own distinctive potato soup variations. Let's take a quick tour. In Ireland, traditional potato soup emerged as a crucial staple, especially during and after the Great Famine. Irish potato soup typically features potatoes, onions, milk or cream, herbs, and often bacon. It's hearty, filling, and designed to sustain. In Germany, Kartoffelsuppe is a beloved national favorite found in every region. It typically includes potatoes, onions, carrots, leeks, celery, and the distinctive herb marjoram. Many versions include bacon or sausage, and some regional variations even add sauerkraut. Did you know the German word Kartoffel comes from the Italian tartufolo, meaning truffle? Early Europeans thought potatoes resembled truffles when they were dug up from the ground. Eastern European countries each have their own special potato soups. In Poland, kartoflanka often includes root vegetables, mushrooms, and smoked meats. Modern versions might even add chopped dill pickle and pickle juice for a tangy twist. Hungarian krumpelevs gets its distinctive character from paprika, along with potatoes, onions, carrots, and often sour cream and smoked sausage. In Scandinavia, potatoes became vital to the diet by the late 19th century. Swedish potato soup often features bacon, while Norwegian versions commonly include leeks. Danish potato soup typically incorporates thyme and bay leaves, often garnished with roasted seeds for texture. What's remarkable is how a single ingredient, the potato, adapted to so many different culinary traditions. Each culture incorporated local ingredients and cooking methods, creating a wonderful diversity of dishes from the same humble tuber. There's another fascinating chapter in the potato's cultural journey that takes us to the world of art. Vincent van Gogh, one of history's most celebrated painters, had a profound connection to the potato and the humble people who depended on it. In April 1885, Van Gogh completed what he considered his first masterpiece, The Potato Eaters. This dark, earthy painting depicts a family of peasants gathered around a table, sharing a simple meal of potatoes. In the dim light of an oil lamp, their faces and hands are weathered and rough, deliberately painted to resemble the soil they worked with. What makes the story especially touching is how Van Gogh described this painting in letters to his beloved brother Theo, who supported him financially and emotionally throughout his troubled life. In a letter dated April 30th, 1885, Van Gogh wrote to Theo, "I've tried to emphasize that these people, eating their potatoes in the lamplight, have dug the earth with those very hands they put in the dish, and so it speaks of manual labor, and how they have honestly earned their food." In one particularly moving letter from August 1888, while living in Alès, France, Van Gogh refused the food at his boarding house during a health crisis, writing to Theo, "Until my crisis, I ate nothing but bread and a little soup." which I'll continue to do. Van Gogh's connection to potato soup wasn't just about sustenance. It reflected his values, his empathy for working people, and his belief that there was profound meaning in even the simplest aspects of life. Today, we're cooking something straight out of the Middle Ages, a potage, the hearty stew that kept medieval families nourished for generations. And we'll serve it alongside a simple, silky potato puree, a dish they may not have had, but one that honors the humble potato we've come to cherish. For the potage stew you will need 1 tablespoon olive oil, 1 diced onion, 2 minced garlic cloves, 2 chopped carrots, 2 chopped parsnips, 1 sliced leek, 1/2 small diced swede or turnip, 1 teaspoon dried thyme, 1 teaspoon dried sage, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon black pepper, 1 bay leaf, 100-gram red lentils, 400-gram butter beans. For the potato puree, 4 to 5 peeled and chopped medium floury potatoes, 3 to 4 tablespoons milk, 1 to 2 tablespoons olive oil, salt to taste. Let's begin with the base of it all, onion and garlic. Drizzle a little olive oil into your pot and let it heat gently. Add diced onion and minced garlic. Let them soften and release their aroma. This is the heart of flavor. While those sizzle, chop your vegetables, carrots, parsnips, leek, and a bit of swede or turnip. Each adds its own earthiness to the potage. Add them to the pot and stir well, letting them mingle and soften. Now, season with dried thyme, sage, salt, and a touch of black pepper. Drop in a bay leaf for depth. Next, pour in your red lentils and cooked beans, the protein-rich soul of this dish. Top it all with water or broth, bring to a gentle boil, then reduce to a simmer. Let it bubble away while we prepare the puree. For the potato puree, boil chopped potatoes until fork tender. Mash them with a splash of milk, a drizzle of olive oil, and a pinch of salt. Creamy, simple, and timeless. And there you have it, a medieval potage stew paired with potato puree. A meal grounded in history, crafted with care. This stew is moderate in calories, rich in complex carbohydrates, and offers slow-burning energy. The fiber supports digestion, while the lentils provide protein for cell repair and satiety. It's a wholesome, rustic meal, deeply rooted in the past, yet perfectly suited to modern nutrition. As we finish this journey through centuries of history, culture, and cuisine, it's humbling to realize that a simple bowl of potato soup connects us all, from ancient Andean farmers to medieval peasants, to artists like Van Gogh, and to us today. Whether you enjoy this potage in a quiet kitchen or share it around a bustling family table, you're tasting something timeless. A dish born from the earth, shaped by human hands, and carried forward by tradition. If this kind of food story speaks to you, the kind that stirs memory, meaning, and a bit of wonder, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss what's next on Rediscovering Foods. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.